The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.
Welcome to How to Money with Cole and Cole.
I'm Cole.
And I'm Cole.
We coach people every day on their money and how to plan for the future.
As financial advisors, we're here to have an honest conversation on investing, retirement, and everything in between.
At Full Swing Financial Planning, we're here to empower you to take control of your plan, your way, for your financial future.
So let's talk money.
And sports.
Welcome back to How to Money with Cole and Cole. I'm Bailey Ashbrook, sitting with Cole Jaskey. Episode 99. Can you believe it?
I know, it's crazy. It's already
2026.
It's the 6th of January already. Crazy. It's going to be 50 tomorrow in January, which is nuts, but
I need
snow's
it
almost
mentally.
gone.
I need it mentally.
Me too.
We're located in Iowa. If you're listening, you're like, what are they talking about? We have 4 seasons.
We're in the dark days of winter here.
Yeah.
So.
I was thinking like Alaska. How do people do it? You know?
Yeah. They're in that stage where it's like dark for like 70
Nope.
days or something like that. I don't know. I'm way off on that, I'm sure. So we're already off the rails.
We're making things up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited because I love a new year. I love to be intentional. I feel like this is the best time to start your year off right with investing. And today on the episode, we're going to talk about how to start investing without overthinking it. So really, we're just going to 4 things: how to review what you have, where you should put your new money, how much to invest, and whether lump sum or dollar cost averaging makes more sense.
And this is so relevant because we get this conversation, especially from new investors or people that are just getting started, or they want to know where to start. They're always like, how much should I be doing? What should I be doing? What type of account? And it's like, I feel like I have this conversation
daily,
multiple times a week, and we deal with a lot of 401k plans.
And they're always like, how much should I put away? Where should I put it?
Like, how much should I save? What should I be saving? And really, everyone's different, but it is something that we hear all the time. We are always hearing this.
We were meeting with people the other day, and they're like, how much should I put to my 401k? I was like, well, how much do you make? Are you married? How much does your spouse make? How much are you putting away? What's already in your account? When do you want to like, these are situational things. So before you invest in another dollar, we really want you to review what you have. So it's quarter one. It's a great time. If you work with an advisor, if you don't, this is really easy. Take pen to paper, take an Excel sheet, whatever your method to madness is, and list out what you own. And this is your favorite thing. Why do you own it?
Yep. And we're seeing this firsthand. I have a lot of people once a year, or multiple times a year. Sometimes it depends on, wage changes, things there. But, 401k, for example, 401k contribution limits, IRA limits went up for this year for 2026. So a lot of people, if you're doing a salary deferral or you have an automatic investment that comes out of your bank account, or you do a lump sum at the beginning of the year, those contribution amounts that you're allowed to do in some of these, very advantageous accounts, they have gone up.
Now.
Yes, we want to adjust now or plan, right? Not like, I got throughout the year and didn't realize that the 401k contribution limit went up $1,000 and I can put an extra $1,000.
Or I didn't know Roth was available, or whatever it is, maybe. So I know you do this. I do this. The best thing to do is just list what type of account this is. Is this my 401k at work? Is this an old 401k? Should I leave it in that 401k? Is this my IRA? Is this my non-qualified? And what is the goal of this money? And then list the amount.
I'm glad you said the last part. What's the goal of the money? Because that's what when someone asks me, well, how much should I be saving, or what type of account should I save in? And I'll always go of, hey, well, what's the objective? Is it purely retirement? Okay, it's retirement. We're 30 years. Good. Let's look at either a Roth IRA, or a pre-tax IRA, or your 401k, depending on the situation. But sometimes it's like, no, one of my main objectives is to save 20% for a down payment of my house in 5 years, right? Then we're going to look completely different. And you're like, I would like to have that money invested. We're going to look more of a non-qualified account, right? It's really subjective, or could be kids accounts, right? Different things.
Because sometimes people get hung up on, I need to have the best account. And sometimes it's not about that. It's about knowing what each account is supposed to do. So I do want you to go through this, maybe a younger listener, go through the different accounts, qualified, non-qualified. Just give a brief overview of the type of investment accounts, which there's multiple, but the basics that we're talking about.
Yep. So you're going to hear in our world, or if you're working in, whatever personal financial language you want to talk about, it's qualified, non-qualified. Let's start there. So qualified, and these are IRS terms. Qualified means it's some type of qualified retirement account. So it could be a 401k, a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, a SEP IRA, any IRA or 401k, could be a 403b, which is similar to a 401k. They're the exact same ones, just public and private. But then on the non-qualified side, that's where you hear things like a brokerage account, an investment account. So if some people might have, this is common for younger listeners, Acorns or Robinhood.
Crypto.
A lot of times, a crypto account. That's considered in the IRS standpoint. If you go and open up a crypto wallet, buy Bitcoin, that's a non-qualified account, meaning it's going to be subject to taxation if there's a gain if there's a realized gain or loss in whatever tax year that might be. Versus qualified, generally it's deferred. There's different.
It's for retirement.
Yep, there's different tax benefits, and it generally has a time frame or some more rules that could be more sensitive to taxation or penalty if you don't use them correctly.
And I feel like I know this, when you're reviewing your accounts, now you need to sit down and be like, okay, what is available to me this year? Do I have a 401k? Do I not have a 401k? Am I a business owner? Do I need to set up a SEP IRA? It's certain things, because this isn't about figuring out, am I doing enough? This is figuring out where am I at today? So then we can figure out where we're going.
I think the thought process would be, goals, and then, okay, what's the objective on saving? Then it'd be, okay, do I want more tax sensitive? Do I want tax free? Right? Think of the tax impacts of the savings. And then third would be, hey, what are we going to invest in and how much within that account? Right? That's kind of that chain of thought process. And that could be for multiple accounts. You could be opening up could be contributing to your 401k, having a Roth IRA that's separate, and then having a non-qualified account. And they could all have different objectives on them, but ultimately you're saving all three and have, maybe similar investments, or it could be completely different just based on your individual situation.
So Cole, talk through this. So now let's say you're sitting down with your client, they've reviewed it. They say, I have X in my 401k, X in a Roth IRA, but I can't do a Roth IRA, type of stuff, like these type of conversations. How do you decide where the money should go for the year? What's the best options? And go through get the match first. Should I do, those type of things, like sit down situationally with someone. Okay, where do we decide this year where the funds go?
First and foremost, we want to make sure that you are taking full advantage of your company match, right? A lot of times, and for most people,
you hear free money.
Yep. The 401k or your 403b, depending on the sector of work you in, that's going to be probably your primary savings vehicle first, right? Because it's done through payroll. It's very systematic. A lot of times there's a match.
Put the most away in it.
Yep. It's generally pretty cost efficient, meaning you're getting kind of a group discount. And you can contribute the most on a qualified basis. So if you're someone that's in a high tax bracket, you're like, hey, I want a deduction. Your 401k is probably going to be your biggest bucket that you can max out for this year. I believe is it 24,500?
Yep.
24,500 for 2026. You can't do that in a traditional IRA. You can only do $7,500. So if you're like, hey, I want it all pre-tax.
I want to get to this amount.
Yeah. You have to do it through there, or unless you're a business owner, the rules can change, or vice versa. Like, hey, I want to get 24,500 Roth. I want to get as much as I can pre-tax.
Because I can't maybe do Roth outside of it.
Yep. And there's income limitations to being able to contribute to a Roth. So that's where if you make X amount of income, and you have access to a 401k through work, the IRS says, hey, you can't do your 24/5 at work plus a Roth IRA contribution. Now there are different planning rules and things that we can do to work around that. But generally it's where people very high incomes are getting up above $250,000 of adjusted gross income.
But most importantly, if you have a 401k available to you and you're an employee of someone and there is a match, that's the number one place to start. Yep. Get that match, because that's money you will not get unless you hit that match. So 401k is very common. They're consistent. They're easy, like Cole said. So go into an IRA, because I know I'm beating a dead horse, but I can't tell you how many times people confuse 401k and IRA weekly.
Yep. They're both qualified,
yep.
Right? So when the IRS looks at, hey, whether you have a traditional IRA, what some people might say pre-tax IRA, or a traditional 401k or pre-tax 401k, the distribution rules and how they're handled on the IRS and the taxes and penalties if you take money out early are all the exact same. But the biggest difference is traditional IRA or pre-tax individual IRA is individual retirement account is managed on the individual level. It's either self-directed or managed by a team like, are at Full Swing or some different financial firm, or you just have your own account that you're buying, Apple stock or whatever it is right through the account. So it's individually directed. The 401k is more on a group platform. That sponsor or your employers, generally the sponsor, they set up that platform, give you the ability to get into that, give you a match. and there's an investment lineup that they have the control on.
I was just going to say, that's
there.
the big difference too. In a 401k, you can only invest in what's available in the 401k, where an IRA, you have unlimited.
But both are retirement objective, right? They're designed for retirement.
59 and a half.
Yep, they have a 59 and a half distribution age when you can start taking distributions without a penalty or being subject to any taxation.
And IRAs do not replace your 401k. We have a lot of clients who have a 401k and they do an IRA. They might sit there and be like, okay, I'm going to put this much in my 401k, get the match, but then I also want to do my own IRA and set some, or maybe they're maxing both out. But the point is, you got to know your income to decide where to put it.
Here's an example. I'll give a scenario where it makes sense for someone to do a 401k and a Roth IRA. Yep. Let's use the Roth IRA. So say single individual makes $100,000. They're doing 12% in their 401k. They get a 6% match. So they get 18%, which would be an awesome plan, right?
Yep.
18%, and they're like, and that's between the employer and theirs. And they're doing pre-tax maybe over there, but they're like, hey, this plan has no liquidity. It doesn't have loan options, doesn't have any. It's 59 and a half, or I have to leave employment for me to have access to. So they might say, hey, I want to start doing a Roth on my own because once Roths have unique rules, once they've been open for 5 years, your contribution amount is available to you to take from without tax or penalty. You can't touch the gains, and it has to be open for 5 years. So you might be a person like, hey, I want to save for a down payment, but I'd like to have some tax-free growth on there. So I know I'm not going to buy a house for 5 years, so I'm going to do my 12% over here in my 401k. Plus, I'm going to do another $5,000 every year in my Roth because I can do that. So I'm going to have $25,000 in there. Plus, maybe it grew to 35. So I have $10,000 worth of gains. It's been open for 5 years. Now I'm going to take $15,000 to use for a 5% down payment on a house. And then I still have the rest of that money growing tax-free. You cannot take any money out of that 401k, right? So you have no liquidity, which we don't want. We want people to think that is designed for retirement.
Yeah, we are not designing this, but yes, keep going.
That's an exact strategy. Or sometimes people will use what's called their Roth basis, right? And that's the money that they contributed. Once it's been open for 5 years, it might be, hey, I'm going to use that to use some for college education, right? I'm going to pay for someone instead of me doing 529s for my kids. I'm going to do it because I know all the growth in there. I'm going to get the benefit of the growth. I'll take from my original dollar amount. I can use some of that. Now, it doesn't solve every strategy, but it does give you some liquidity outside of your 401k, but also the ability that if you don't touch it, you have the power of the tax-free growth for the long term.
And I feel like we live in the generation where it's not as norm to stay at the same employee. Like
Employer,
excuse me. The employee's not the employer, but we have so many people that leave 401ks, and IRA is a great place to start if you are consolidating those different 401ks. It's so incredible how many people I'm like, okay, what do you have? Oh, I think I have an old 401. This is where we really want you, one, hone in. What do I have? And two, what's available? So we talked about you have your 401k available. Now your IRA. Now go more into non-qualified for someone that's like, maybe I want to retire early. Maybe I want to save for something in the future. I want to be a business owner and buy that. Like, why would you put money away in this one?
This is more of a multi-purpose bucket, right? So think of the non-qualified account. It can have many different purposes, objectives, can solve a lot of different goals, but ultimately it's a savings vehicle that does not have the tax penalty, withdrawal penalties that like a 401k or Roth IRA or traditional IRA would have. More flexibility. You can buy, sell at any time. You can take money out anytime. But generally we see that when it's like, hey, especially let's use the scenario I just gave. I'm doing, my 12% here. I'm doing, let's say 7,500 in my Roth IRA, and I still have some. I'm a really good saver, or I have a high income. I still have more that I want to save. My next step would be going to that non-qualified account. And that's where, hey, we can buy the same holdings or have the same type of assets. It's just now you don't have the tax deferral in that non-qualified account. And what I mean by that, if you buy Apple stock today and sell it 6 years from now and you realize a gain of $5,000, you then have to pay capital gains tax on that, but there's no 10% withdrawal penalty, anything there. So you can take from the original money that you put in. The original money you put into a non-qualified account will never be taxed again. So if you start with $100,000, right, that's the money you put in from your bank account and you start a brokerage account or non-qualified account, that 100 will never be taxed again. And people do get that.
Yes.
That's a misconception of people say, well, I already paid tax on that money. I don't want to pay tax on it again. The 100 that you originally put in will never, that's called your cost basis. You'll never pay tax on that again.
You're paying on the gain. What has the stock earned?
And you have to realize a gain, right?
Yes.
So that's where, but again, that can be, hey, I'm saving for, marriage emergencies. a house, but it also can be, hey, it's just another form of retirement savings.
Yes, it's strategic. It's sometimes people think, oh, I'm already doing this, this is extra, which it could be, but these are strategic. It's another strategic bucket, and we find people that have all three, 401k, IRA, and they have very powerful options.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital. Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market. Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarket.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarket.com. That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026. Or visit our website at www.spinmarket.com.
Let's do a little dollars and cents. Nerd out in 2026, Cole. Look, he's already ready.
I have two. I have a bunch that I brought to the table today, but I have two that I'll bring down. So let's start here with reversal years. After falling more than 15% year to date in April, so the S&P 500 fell, if you looked last April, we were down 15%. The S&P 500 finished, though, at the end of the year, up 17%. So 12/31, it was up 17%. The only other year since World War II that the S&P 500 finished the year up more than 15% after trading down some point in that year 15% were 2009 and 2020. So
what happened in those years?
Yeah, it was, post-financial crisis and COVID. So think of that, very unusual what happened, that we had that big of retracement. I mean, that's a 32% retracement from the April lows. So it's only happened two other times since World War II. So I thought that was quite crazy.
It is very interesting.
So the returns, so in 2010, the index added 12.8, and then in 2021, it was 26.9, which that was very, very unique. A lot of stimulus things going on in 2020, 2021. But again, that's quite...
That's why we always tell people, though, do not panic. Do not... it's an emotional ride. We get it. I'm not taking away.
I remember having some conversations, and now for the listeners who weren't paying attention to what was going on, that was when the tariff conversation really sparked up. Right, everyone on TV thought that it was going to be the end of the world, and all of a sudden, market fell off a cliff. Did not like it, but we got through that period. The waters calmed down a little bit. The rhetoric calmed down, and we look back, and if you rode out the wave, you were down 15. You ended up 17.
I just want to remind everyone that TV shows get paid by how many people watch it. They're designed to make money too. And
we
how
need
they
to have
make
more
money.
Listeners here,
yes,
right? So
they want you to be fearful because that's how you stay plugged into them. They sell themselves on your emotions.
All right, this is the shocker one of the year. I don't know if it's a shocker, but it's also kind of a hurts me to read.
Negative.
And I hate being negative, but this is
I think sometimes being real though is how you get past it. So go for it.
Student debt crackdown. The Department of Education will start notifying defaulted student loan borrowers in January, so sometime right now, that up to 15% of their wages may be garnished. So they're going to start garnishing wages if you're not paying your student loans. But according to the DOE, Department of Education, over 5 million borrowers are seriously delinquent, with 3 million of those borrowers missed more than 9 months worth of payments.
Why do you think? What do you think it is? Like, if I had to ask you, why do you think so many people, one, aren't paying on them, and two, do you think it was kind of that gap of like, oh, you don't have to pay, but now all of a sudden you have to pay, and people thought the government might forgive them?
Some of it's like out of sight, out of mind. I think they stopped their automatic payments, and people were just like, I'm not going to look at it. I'm just going to hope something happens. Like, I really do think that's a big piece of it. Like, Peter's shaking his head. Like, I honestly is like, when you have a systematic payment and you're like, it's just kind of getting paid. But then there was the big talk of, hey, there was going to be some forgiveness, and there was also deferral from like post-COVID and different.
But if you would have been paying on that, you would have been, because you was only paying principal.
Yeah, there was a no interest period of time. So if you're a person like, well, I took that extra $200 I was paying, and I spent it on nice shoes or handbags, like it would have been a different. You would have paid way down more principal. Now you're in really probably not a great spot.
Sorry, I'm looking up data, but I think you hit people don't want to look at it, right? It's the same with investing. Like, people don't want to look at their 401k because they think they're behind, but really in turn, if you just face the music, some would say, like if you look at the student loan debt and you say, okay, if I do X or I pick up another job, or if we put this much against it, because you hear people say, well, I was paying the minimum and I can never pay it off. Me and Cole talk about, you have to advocate for yourself. The government is not trying to help you. The people that are holding your student loans, the people on the phone, they're not trying to help you. They get paid by keeping those. Like, you have to look at the numbers.
This is, when you're prioritizing, we were talking about like, hey, where do I start, or what do I do, or what should I be doing? This is one of those things. If you're starting from the beginning, or even like, hey, I'm saving in my 401k, I'm doing a little bit right, but I don't know what I'm doing. And then you're like, well, I'm not really paying much down on my student loan debt. You probably shouldn't be doing maybe bucket 2, 3, 4 before you need to really, really got to hone in on that debt for, especially the student loan debt or things
high interest.
Yeah, really the one debt I would say we're more comfortable that someone's probably going to carry for a long period of time is their mortgage. Their primary mortgage. Generally, that's where most people will have that for a significant period of time. But if you're super focused on paying off your student loan debt, and obviously have a decent job to be able to support yourself.
Or a second job.
Yeah.
Or a third job.
Being intentional on it.
And I say that because I've lived it.
Because we see that. Unfortunately, we see it. People are trying to get to bucket, like, hey, I'm doing my 401k, I'm getting my match, but now I want to do a Roth IRA, hey, I want to buy Bitcoin and this, but they have $100,000 of student loan debt that they're paying the minimum payment on. I'm like, hey, probably not strategizing in the right, you're trying to gamble over here to pay off here, when in reality, it's not going to work.
Absolutely agree with that. But I think it's interesting how much it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I looked up federal student loan, 91.5% of all student loan debt. So it tells you, but estimated 1.7 trillion federal loans. Woo! And I'm not discouraging anyone from going to college, but you have to know what you're paying for. What is it going to get you on the other end, right? If you're going to be a doctor, all those things, but what's the goal of school? Just like, what's the goal of owning the account? I
would be curious of what the trends will look like the next 5 years on people either taking less student loans, not going to college, or shifting, kind of that landscape. I don't know.
And then do companies come back and say, well, we require, it'll be interesting. There's always shifts back.
Well, that was forth. Like when we were going, like
you had to go to college.
You had to have a bachelor's degree of a lot of things you want to apply for. When you were going to fill out an application, a bachelor's degree was required for many positions, even if it was like, you were going to the police academy and you had to get into the academy, but we still need a bachelor's degree.
It wasn't even a question. It's like you had to go to school.
Yeah.
The younger generation, this Gen Z below us, they got, social medias and stuff.
I do think there's got to be a shift in that coming, because I see like I got some younger siblings and things where they're like, well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm doing this. And like their friends are not going to school. And I'm like, so I don't know if that's good or bad. Like time will tell. But
there's always shifts back and forth. But I do think some people are realizing, I can go create something, make more money, not start in debt. Those trade schools.
Yeah, we'll see. I know.
Peter shaking his head.
Hey, we need this. Everyone's talking about AI, and there's a huge energy.
Only a few people can fix your pipes. Luke, shout out.
The infrastructure needs are real.
Yeah.
So like, think of, different trades, industry jobs. They're going to be there unless AI's, coming to unclog my toilet, it's like, or
Luke's coming. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what he does, but people think that's what he does.
Poor Luke.
If you don't know, you're a new listener, my husband's a plumber and he gets jabbed at a bunch of this.
Yes, he does. He does.
And he listens, so he's so nice. But anyways, I think this is super important. I just want to get back to this because we're talking about where do I start investing? Where do I put my dollars? You also have to know what you owe, right? You can't just know what you own, but also what you owe. When I do my net worth, I put the beautiful debt or whatever I owe, on that sheet too. So student debt, if it's on there, don't be just looking at what you're investing. Look at the student debt too.
It's always nice to see the assets, but you need to have a handle on the liabilities.
Yes, because if you have, let's say I have $200,000 in my 401k, but I owe $200 in student loan debt. You guys, you don't own, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to look at it. That's your net worth. So let's get back into it. This is the number one question we get. I guarantee it, because right now we're throwing a lot at you. Like, you could be doing your 401k and you could be doing your IRA and you could be, but really, how much do you tell people to invest, Cole? Or how much do we? Because we're very similar on this guideline, but I don't think a lot of people probably hit it like they think they are.
Very few, I would say. And so we use a financial planning software for all of our individual clients. Yes. And when our clients get access to that portal, one of the first little widgets that they see is their savings rate.
Yes.
That they have. And there's
Explain
a reason
what that is.
There's a reason behind that. And all the 401k platforms, almost all of them, a lot of them will have like some type of savings rate percentage. And really what that is like, that's the biggest thing that matters, right? Ultimately, yes, Bailey made that comment of like, everyone wants to pick the best investment, right?
Yeah.
What's the best thing? And really the number one thing that you can control is your savings rate.
How much
right? And how much your savings rate. And I would say, again, we have baselines, and this is not correct for everyone, and everyone's situation is very situational.
But if you can get to this number, it's a sweet spot.
15% is there's a lot of math, a lot of stats to show if you're consistently you're consistently saving 15%, you're probably going to be definitely above average compared to what a lot of people are doing.
That means right now, take what you grossed last year if you're by yourself, or if you
make 100,000,
take that times it 0.15, and that's what you should be saving into these investments.
That's $15,000 a year.
Good job, Cole.
So
see, guys, he can do math. He's a good advisor.
Yeah. So if you think about that, and if you're not like,
it seems like a lot, but when you break it down by 12 months, you know what I mean? I think people hear 15% and they're like, oh, that's a lot. That's what you're going to need to live on.
And we don't expect people to get there overnight.
Yes.
But if you're doing systematic increases, or you're reviewing, like we're talking about reviewing, hey, what am I doing for contributions? Okay, I was at 8 last year. I think I can go to 10 this year. Let's get to 10, and next year maybe 12, right?
And look at the numbers. What does that really take out of my paycheck more? Or, you know what I mean? 8% to 10%, you'll be like, oh, I can do that. Or I can easily say, I could stop going to Dunkin' Donuts every morning. I'm just kidding.
Well, if you gross, let's say you gross $2,000 a week. So you're making, roughly $100,000 just over, and you gross $2,000 a week. If you do another 2%, that's $40.
That's what I'm saying. Like little consistent changes.
Can you handle $40 or not? And that's the math and that you need to talk to yourself about.
Can I not go out to eat once a month?
That is that's probably once now. Right?
One Stella's trip.
I mean, here in Fort Dodge, but anywhere else it's more expensive. So it's like,
And I feel like we look at this because we get this a lot. And it's statistic. The average is Americans 4 to 5%, which is, could you live off 4 to 5% of your income when you go to retirement? Yes.
Meets what we see, unfortunately. Yes. Yeah, we see a lot of plan participants and talk to a lot of plan participants, and
they're like, "I'll do 3.
Yes,
I'll do 4."
Yep.
It is like the average.
You can't just stay at 2, 3, 4% and expect to replace your income. If you're making $100,000 and you're going to work for 30 years. And just expect that to be enough and your investments to perform that well to sustain your lifestyle in retirement. It's just not going to be enough.
And that's what I don't think people understand is when you're used to only investing 4 to 5%, that means you're spending the rest, right? So when you get into retirement, you're used to living, doing those vacations, doing what you're used to spending that amount. That's what we want to do. That's our goal for you in retirement. And obviously in retirement, you hopefully don't have your mortgage, you don't have debt, but you also want to enjoy your retirement. You want to take that big trip. You know what I mean? We're trying to
things are going to cost more. You look at just inflation. An inflationary chart of just say, hey, what will gas cost in 2065? You go and look and you're like, oh gosh. I mean, and that's the same dollar. We just have the 2 or 3% inflationary number that, you're not thinking about, but that's a tough thing. Everything's going to cost more.
And how do you get to 15%, Cole? A budget.
Yep.
I'm being serious. Like we're talking about where to invest, how to invest, what these type of accounts are. But number one, people don't know how to get to feel like they can get to 15% because they don't know where their money's going. So when I think about this, there was a small period where me and Luke were like, okay, we're going to stop investing because we had student loans, and we're going to stop investing. We're going to pile all of our money on that. And at the time I felt like, oh, we're going to get behind. But now feel like we have so much more at the time. Now we have free income. Now you can take that and put it towards investment. There's ways to play with it, but I challenge people to sit down with someone if you don't feel like you can get there by yourself and be like, okay, how can I get to 15%? How many years does it take me to get to 15 years? Because if you're doing 5 now, 6, then we just want to get there.
And again, 15's that baseline, but if you really want to go dig deeper into this, is really, get all your stuff compiled and look at projections. What do I want to spend? And we can really tell you, hey, okay, your 15's really not going to do it. If you're like, hey, I want to retire at 55. I want this income. I want this. You want to be very detailed.
I want a plane.
Right. We can go back and recreate the math of like, here's what you're going to have to do based on normalized returns over this period of time. But if you want general,
I think 15% is general because it's where you can also enjoy life now, where you're not feeling like, 25, 30%, that's a lot of my income, where the numbers still make sense, where it runs out 15% of your income, saving, compounding, get you to that retirement goal.
And we do want people to be more detailed than just like 15%. But we understand the masses. Most people are just like looking for general baselines, right? And that's why we're talking about this.
Yes.
But in reality, the more detailed you can get, the better it's going to be, and and the more aware you're going to be, whether you're accomplishing or not. At least you're going to know, like, hey, I'm going to have to get to this.
And we do this ourselves. Like, I sat down in December. I was like, okay, how much have I made this year? Did I get to the 15% of the income? Do I have extra? Do I need to add some? Like, it's not about perfection. It's just about consistency. And again, looking at the numbers. Yep. So Peter, you can chime in because me and Peter was doing a little research and I want to know what prompted your research. So this is the other question. Should I put my contributions in monthly in my 401k, IRA, whatever account you're doing, or do I lump sum it in the beginning of the year? Peter, why did you research? What were you working on your own numbers over there?
Oh, yeah. So it's the beginning of the year. You know, you got to look at all this stuff. I listen to the podcast. You got to listen.
Yeah.
So I went back and looked at everything. And there was a couple years where I didn't contribute enough. So I ended up making, a later contribution. It's like, I should have put that in, in 2023 and not early 24 for 23. Yep. Then I was like, what if I put it all in at the beginning? Does that make a difference? Or what if I do it, once a month and then fill it up at the end of the year by the time I'm like, so what's best, I guess? What do you guys think?
So this comes back, there's a mathematical best.
There's always math.
Right. I think if you're going to do it lump sum at the beginning of the year, the math's going to say
you're going to make more.
You're going to, over a long period of time, you're going to do a little bit better return.
So what they're saying is if you can front load, like if you, let's say you have 8,000.
Let's do the Roth IRA.
If you have 8,000 in your checking account and you can put it all in this month, that's what they're saying, instead of adding it monthly.
Instead of dividing it by 12 and putting it in.
Yep.
Statistically, it will say that will do better if you do it at the beginning of the year because you have more money invested for a longer period of time.
In the market.
It's the time value of money. On the other side, what I see personally, this is more the emotional intelligence side, I would say discipline side. Some people, right, will say, hey, I'm going to do it once a year. I'm going to do it in January. But then January comes and like, oh, I spent too much in December because it was Christmas. My kids needed this, whatever. And now that 8,000 becomes or 7,500 that for the Roth becomes 3,000, right? And they never get to that full amount versus a lot of times it's easier for people to cash flow when you divide it by 12, right? I don't have to come up with a lump sum. I'm dividing that 7,500 divided by 12. And I know I can kind of handle that versus saying, and that's more of, some people, unfortunately, are not as disciplined, right? So I find that I have more...
It wins more emotionally.
I have more people that I would say the more level your income is, like it's consistent. You're not like a business owner where you have big spikes and stuff. You want to build it in. It's very similar. Your 401k has to be done through a payroll deposit. So that's generally, it matches your payroll period. So you can't really say, hey, I want to do, unless you make $24,000 in one payroll period, you could in theory say, hey, I want to lump sum that all in. But
and if you're disciplined enough and you know what your cash flow is.
Yeah, or you get a bonus and you're like, hey, I want to pre-fill my 401k. Yeah. But other than that, if you're making $5,000 a month, you can't just say, employer put $24,000. You got to have the money to be able to do that. So the Roth is definitely different, or any type of investing. It really comes back to, what can you be disciplined to?
Knowing yourself. It's behavior. Yep. And I like this, Pierre, because I actually was doing this with myself. I was like, do I want to front load some stuff in January, free up some cash flow throughout the year? Or do I want to keep, you know what I mean? It's so situational. And I think the most important thing is do it. Like you said, don't say you're going to lump sum in January and then, oh shoot, I don't have it. You got to know yourself. Like if you know you're a very disciplined person, Peter, it sounds like you are. You know what I mean? You can save that and you're going to lump sum every year. And some people like that. Do that. But if you're the more...
I don't lump sum anything.
Yeah. And if you're the more consistent, and you just like that and emotional... The most important thing is, the best strategy is get it, invest it, and keep it there.
I have it automatic because otherwise I will sometimes forget or be... not forget, but just like, procrastinate versus I'll just like, I know I do my 401k through our payroll. So I just divide that up by my payroll periods and I know exactly what that is. And then I save in a non-qualified account, but I just save monthly automatically. It just comes right out. And same with all my kids' accounts, college accounts, everything all comes out systematically.
I don't have these accounts.
I know. I don't lump sum anything. I have plenty of clients though that do. They do their lump sums.
I have clients that pay all their bills in January, lump sum, and then let it. It's an emotional thing for people.
And sometimes the lump sum versus the systematic is, you'll see some stuff on dollar cost averaging is you're buying at different points, buy points throughout the year, right? So I will say if you get a really rocky down year, and you compare to lump sum versus the monthly, you're probably going to do better where you were buying different durations.
Levels.
But
you bought at a high,
when we expand it out over a long period of time, bull market, the lump sum generally is going to win, just purely you've got more money invested for a longer period of time.
And I like this question, Peter, because it's so true. Like when people think of financial planning, you're like, math wins every time. Peter's like, duh, the math wins. I'm going to lump sum. I wish financial planning was just math, but we know it's so emotional, it's so behavior, it's so situational, like people. So that's a good one. But go ahead.
I was going to say, you guys brought up exactly the emotion I thought of was like, what if I invested all in January and it just tanks? You know? I mean, but then the other thing was if I leave it in there for 25 years, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
It's going to go back up.
And I think, again, the decision fatigue, right? Like we don't want to just do one, pick one. And if it works, and let's say you like it this year and you lump sum and you're like, I like that. I like just being done with it and having a little cash flow throughout there. If you're like, ooh, I did not like that.
The consistency.
Just do it. And this is why I love when people work with financial planners, because this is when you sit down, you have those conversations. Did that work for you this year? What could we re-strategize? Should we go to a dollar cost average? What works for you? So I love that point. Thank you, Peter, for bringing that up. But I do want to add this. If you do have, Peter, someone has cash sitting idle, there are people who just feel very safe with a lot of cash. Like we have these conversations like, well, actually I have like 80,000 sitting in the bank. That's just my emergency fund. I will sit there and be like, okay, let's talk about it. What emergency fund do you personally have coming up? And maybe you do. It's all situational, but not for everyone. Could we make this money work for you? These are the type of conversations I love to have about lump summing. So, all right, Cole, last one that I feel like we get. What should you actually be investing in?
Yeah, and this is, there's so much, right?
So much information.
I always, this is a tough question. And again, it's one that always comes up. Like, well, what should I be doing? And again, first and foremost, we need to, outline objectives, timeline, what type of account, right? Are we investing in?
Are you comfortable?
Yep. Are you comfortable? For example, the S&P 500 was down 7 or 15% last April. How did you feel about that? Mm-hmm. Right. And maybe it's like, well, that made me, want to never invest again. Well, we don't want that, right? We need something maybe it's more stable, but still has long-term growth.
Because we want to beat inflation. We want to have you in retirement, have some money.
I wish I had, I showed you a chart, and it's about why to be invested, right?
Oh, it's so good.
Because sometimes you're talking about the cash portion, and it was the percentage of I think it took the rolling 1 years for like since 1980 to 2025 or 2024, something like that. Don't quote me on this, but it was, and it was a bar chart of like your investment portfolio in different time periods. And it was the percentage of having a positive return, the likelihood. Mm-hmm. If you had a 60-40 portfolio over that period of time, it was...
Meaning your 60% growth. Go ahead.
Sorry, 60% equities, 40% fixed income.
Thank you.
You had 100% likelihood of having positive returns if you held it for, I believe it was a 10-year duration. So if you at least had, any rolling 1 year and you held it for 10 years, any period in there, you had a 60-40 portfolio, you never lost a dollar. And then it goes down of like, hey, if you had it 5 years, 3 years, and the percentage goes down a little bit more. And what it's talking is the likelihood of having that balanced mix and having a return the longer you're in and having some invested.
Have something invested.
Have something invested, it's going to bring positive returns to you. So I know that I kind of sidetracked on that, on like what to invest in, but there's so many things available to you, and you really just need to, again, hone in on the consistency of what kind of matters to your portfolio, and then knowing
time horizon.
The type of account is going to matter, because if you're a high income earner, for example, and you have a lot of money in a non-qualified account, there's certain things that are more tax advantageous for you to invest in a non-qualified account versus a Roth IRA. It's all tax deferred and all the growth is tax free. It does not matter what you invest. I mean, we want to make as most money as possible.
Go crazy in there.
But you want to be as aggressive, really, in theory, you want to be as aggressive as possible in the Roth, because you get the most benefit in the Roth for making money, because it's tax free.
And I want to challenge our listeners, because you said something like, how did you feel if the market, yes, there was a moment where that market dipped, but how would you feel if you just stuck it out and where your numbers at now? I think that's really empowering and educating people historically on the market. Like, be a little comfortable with a little risk if you can be, you know what I mean? Because that's how you're going to keep up with inflation. That's how you're going to get your toes wet and staying invested long-term and seeing those growth numbers. I feel like it's easier for them to stay invested when they've seen years of growth.
Yep.
For people who kind of panic and go in and out of, growth, non-growth, like equity, bond, it's harder for them to really see the true impact of investing.
I've shown some people, I will show like a 3% fixed 10-year and put it up against like the worst, balanced mutual fund I can find, and it just laps the 3%.
Yes,
even over, and we'll use like a financial crisis era where you had this huge dip, and like there's so much data on like why people even even people get when they age, like, oh, I should get less risky and not invest. Investing doesn't always mean stock market or stocks, right? There's such thing as a balance, diversification, different types of investments, not just stocks always too, is when we talk about that, especially when we're talking like a balanced portfolio.
And I just want to challenge people too, when you do look at, like, because this is what you're asking to do, what do I own? How much is in what am I going to put? Do know, is this account? Because we have so many people that are like, I don't know what's my 401k. Is it growth oriented? Or I'm not comfortable with growth. And then I open their account, it's 99% equity. I'm like, well, you've been comfortable with growth. Actually, you are probably comfortable with growth. Let's talk about it.
And I would say there's more people that are too conservative than there are people that are more aggressive.
But I think that's the media.
Yep.
I truly do.
By far, I think people should be, way more aggressive than what they actually,
because you don't need the money. Most people don't need the money today. Not some people do, but even if you're 60 and you're planning to live till 90, you need to make those buckets last till 90.
I've had this question twice on people that are not clients of mine, prospects. This in the last 2 weeks, both were talking about investing for children, and I'm like, they're young. I'm like, they're young, and they were talking about how aggressive concern. I'm like, you should be, if your child's 1 or 2 years old and you're like, well, I pay all the bills. This money is coming from grandparents, and they're not touching it till they're in college or 20, and they're 2-3 years old. They should be as aggressive. They have a 15 to 20 year time horizon. You don't care what happens in the next 10 years. You should be as aggressive as possible, because that's the most the best thing that you could do for that child is have an aggressive growth bucket in there. Obviously, you don't want to buy something that could go to zero, but a growth-based mutual fund or an index fund, an S&P 5, something that is equity and has a lot of potential for growth, because they have the time period, right? And that's where a lot of times I see so many people that they're just building money and savings for children. They're making 0.025%.
You're really losing money.
And you're like, well, that makes no sense. You're paying all the bills. There's no reliance on that money, or they don't need that money for anything until they're going to college or buying a house or whatever you want to give the money to them for. So be more aggressive.
Yeah. I love that. Look at that little pitch I got you on about growth. But okay, so I love this episode because it's the beginning of the year.
It's easy when the market's up too.
Yeah,
I will say that.
I will say that though. I have accounts that all my accounts are super aggressive. Not one's not. And I've, the COVID dip. I haven't lived, the market, so I'm not going to pretend. But
and I would say aggressive within traditional equities is what we consider. There might be some people like, well, I have, all XRP or what something, and that's completely
that's gambling.
Different. We're talking more.
Gambling.
We're talking more in our traditional asset arena.
Yeah, I'm glad you had that. But we want you to review what you have. Number one, what do I have? Why do I own it? And then number two, where should my money actually be going this year, and why is it going there? How much should I invest? Again, we say 15% is a great place to try and get to. We don't want perfection. We want consistency. And then again, should you lump sum it, dollar cost average? What should you own? These are things I really think if you empower yourself to just feel uncomfortable about it for a little bit, you will feel so much more comfortable about it every year you do it. Because I hear so many people, I just don't understand it. You just don't understand it yet. And you need to understand it, because this is I always tell my clients, this is your money. I want you to know what it's doing. This is not my money. So what would you add to that, Cole?
You were on a roll there, so I wasn't going to cut you off. I love that. This episode was very relevant to the conversations that we have
day in and day out.
Yeah, all the time. Or just the questions when you're out and about and, socially, and someone's asked, oh, what should I be doing?
Yes.
Right? There's so many things that, that I thought we were talking about important, that they're everyday conversations that people are having.
And I want to add this. Everyone's asking them. So you think, oh, I just don't understand. No, everyone is asking these same questions. We have it all the time. And I want to add this. We do a lot of 401k meetings, and we've learned when we do in a group setting, no one has a question. We're like, okay, who has a question about it? Like these types of questions, no one. Then all of a sudden after the meeting, they'll start trickling up to you and they'll ask these exact
individual one-on-one
conversations.
How much should
I be doing? Should I be doing Roth? What would you suggest with this? How much? And I'm like, see, you guys are all.
That tells me that they're thinking about it. Yep, and people, just need to have the conversation. I don't want you to feel
like you're not doing this. And we had a younger client just start investing, just way ahead of the curve. But I literally said, start a net worth sheet. Start one right now. And in 10 years, you'll be so happy you track this if you can start seeing what you're
It'll make you committed to your investment vehicles.
Yep. You can always track what you're actually watching. So, all right, new year, go follow, go subscribe. Tell us what you want to hear about. Us jabbering, yapping, I think is what the kids call it. What do you want to hear is yap about on financial things. But please, we love that. Like, subscribe, share. Everyone wants this information. I'm telling you, everyone asks the same questions and start your year off great.
Awesome.
If it's important, you do it now. If it's not important, you don't do it at all. Dan Gable.
You've been listening to How to Money with Cole and Cole, the podcast of Full Swing Financial Planning. To learn more, visit their website at www.fullswingfinancial.com and follow them on Facebook and LinkedIn.
For now, I'm Cole.
I'm Bailey.
And I'm Cole.
And we'll see you on the greens. 4!
Security and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.